All right, it's your Mick back here. This is a pretty special episode tonight. I mean, being a Sabres fan, especially, the drought is finally over. The end of the Sabres ended one of the longest active playoff sports in the four major sports. I mean, over the weekend, which we'll get into shortly. But let's recap your NCAA tournament. It's now in the books officially. Of course, your Final Four was Illinois, UConn, which kicked it off. This past Saturday. UConn beat Illinois. Illinois looked sluggish that game. UConn, I mean, they're both kind of not having their greatest game. I mean, UConn looked pretty good at times, but still, it's like UConn beating Illinois 71-62, and then the second game we thought was the best game, Michigan Arizona, and they ended up just clobbering Arizona. I did not expect that because I thought it would at least come down to the final possession. But no, Michigan dominated that one to beat Arizona to get to the title game. And of course, Lux. I mean, Axel Landenberg got hurt in the game, but didn't affect him. But then, of course, came down to Michigan and UConn. Boy, as a Duke fan, I'm just happy to see UConn got beat. Karma's a bitch for eliminating Duke. The Duke curse lives on. I tell you. Michigan beating UConn. UConn made it interesting at times, but Michigan, man. That's the second half. I mean, Cadeau, once he hit that three, you kind of knew it was game over. UConn just kept battling back, but just Michigan, too much to handle. Winning their first national title since the Fab Five team, It was like 1989 the last time Michigan won a title. So congratulations to the Michigan Wolverines. And of course, Duke beat Michigan this year, but also I got to see Michigan in person for the first weekend against the tournament. So I'm happy I got to see a team that won the NCAA tournament. That came out of the Buffalo games. It's amazing. It's amazing, but still, I wish it was Duke. But that's my consolation. Got to see a team out of the games I was at after the NCAA tournament winning the whole thing. What have you seen in his game that's leading to all this offensive success? Yeah, Michigan Wolverines, you're NCAA tournament champions now. Now what's up for next year? I mean, we already got some big transfers already, obviously, of course. Oh, hello, thanks for tuning in. Yes, I mean now obviously Michigan wants to keep building. I mean, Dusty May, from the Michigan head coach, was in a Final Four 3 years ago when he was head coach at FAU. And that's Cinderella. But this year, he gets back to the Final Four and wins a title. His first national title as a head coach. Being on a UConn team that's been a dynasty team, it's been a powerhouse, especially this decade alone. They've been a dominant this decade. And also had some good championship success in this millennium too. So that's UConn usually is. I mean, they're undefeated national championship games. That's the first time they lost a national title game. And they get past the first weekend, they're dangerous. The run came to an end. Alex Caravan, his college basketball career comes to an end. He gave everything he has. He got 2 national titles. He was hoping for one more. Came up a bit short. Of course, Elliot Cadeau, just phenomenal this year for the Michigan. The Axel Landenberg too is good. He also had, of course, the big dude from May. He's amazing too. Michigan, it's the size advantage all year. It's just like, oh, if only Duke could have gotten past UConn. We could have been the champs possibly, but I don't think we would have beaten Michigan twice, honestly. But it is what it is. Michigan, national champs. Congrats to them. They deserve it. We'll see who'll win it next year, obviously. Of course, Duke made some notable transfer portal issues. Of course, Harris transferred yesterday. Today, Nick Kamenya. So he's out, now. So, yep. So that will be it. Now let's finally talk about our biggest topic of the night: the Buffalo Sabres. I mean, wow. I mean, ending the playoff drought. I mean, they've had a great year, but we just didn't know when it was going to end eventually. But it happened this past Saturday. With they went, with the help from the New York Rangers, Rangers beating the Red Wings, which got us in. Now we're to have a chance at winning a division now, so that's the biggest thing now. But still, as a Western New Yorker, as a Sabres fan, just I'm really enjoying this moment. It's been a hell of a season. And they're playing. I mean, they're even just didn't expect them to be this good. I mean, because they started out a little bit slow in the beginning of the year. And the struggle was November. I was like, oh goodness, it's be a long year. And then December 9th, what turned their season around. That game against Edmonton. They won a 10 game winning streak after that. You know, that win. They won 9 more games after that. You know, and of course they had another couple winning streaks. They just kept point streaks, all that stuff, just to get to this point. Oh, it's exciting. It is exciting for sure. I mean, let's talk all the years of being a Sabres fan. Like, certain games I've watched over the years. Of course, I remember the very first Winter Classic against the Pittsburgh Penguins back in 2008. I was like gonna be 7 that year. I mean, it was like New Year's Day, 2008. It was in the Bill Stadium. It was at the old Highmark Stadium before. So obviously now they got the new stadium coming up, and it's the Penguins. They lost in shootout, but yeah, I remember that game. Blizzard conditions. Of course, 2008 they beat the Montreal Canadiens in a shootout. I remember watching that on TV. But 2009-10, I followed their season. Of course, I watched their last 2 times they've been in the playoffs in 2010 and 2011 too. It's been a while since I've seen them in the playoffs. I was only 10 years old last time the Sabres made.
When Verizon gives you a free phone, Gemini, show me the concealer. You use AI a lot.
The long, thin tube in the middle.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, of course they lost to Boston back in 2010. I watched that series. We lost in 6 games there.
It's leaning away for more sunlight.
And in 2010-11, of course, the last time we made the playoffs, we got beaten in Game 7 against the Flyers. We went to a 7-game series with the Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, just been through pain and bad, being a fan, just seeing all the years of irrelevancy, mediocrity, all that, just 1 point shy and all that, of course, the 18-game losing streak, 13-game losing streak. I've been through it all as a Sabres fan. I don't know what took us so long, but still, it's so worth the wait finally to see him finally back in the playoffs. 15 years later. I mean, 2011-12, I mean, we missed this. This is the drought started happening. They were in it, the wild card race. In 2012-13, I mean, we just started getting a little mediocrity. We fired Lindy Ruff, I mean, before we tried to bring him back like that decade later. Of course, 2013 was my first Sabres game I attended against the New York Islanders. We lost 4-0 that one. 2013, I got to see them win, against the New Jersey Devils in a shootout, April 1st, 2014. That was my 13th birthday at the time. I turned 13. 2014-15, I saw a couple of games. That was a season we were tanking for Connor McDavid. We were trying to get Connor McDavid win the draft lottery, but instead we ended up with this bozo named Jack Eichel. Well, I'm watching the game right now currently. They're getting beat now. They were up 2-0 and now they get up 3-0. They're losing the Rangers. God damn it. Went to 2 games that season. I went to see him play the Panthers. 2014-15. And of course, obviously I saw him beat the Leafs. 13-16 was like, okay, transition, kind of like, it's like, well, obviously, of course, went through so many coaches too. I was like, give it some time. 2017-18, we were just bad. Won the draft lottery. Then we ended up getting Rasmus Dahlin, who's on our team, obviously, our team captain. Ended up being 18-19. We were on a 10-game winning streak, and then we just folded. 19-20, of course, season got cut short due to COVID, obviously. Didn't make the playoffs anyway. 2020-2021, that was when we had the 18-game losing streak. Got through the Ralph Kruger, and of course, Don Granado comes along. But 21-22 is when I started going back to Sabres games. March 10th of 2022. Eichel's first return to Buffalo. This is after we traded him, a few months later. So we started booing him, obviously, because, he's always been wanting out of Buffalo. Let's be honest. No failure we've had, So, yeah, I flipped him off. I booed him. I heckled him. This is 4 years ago, that game. One of my all-time favorites. It's up there for my top 5 all-time favorite Sabres games I've attended over the years during the drought. All these games I've attended, was during the drought until now. It's so different now. Saw him beat the Golden Knights, and I also, yeah, of course, I see him play the Panthers. Obviously, every time I've seen him play the Florida Panthers in person, they lose. 22-23, I got to see him play the Golden Knights again. We lost that one, and then lost the Panthers again. And we obviously beat the Senators. It was Craig Anderson's last game in the NHL back in 2023, 3 years later. I mean, there's so many. I mean, I've been to 29 Sabres games in my lifetime. It's just a hell of a journey just to see how it unfold for me. I mean, that was the season, 2022-23 season. We were 1 point shy of the playoffs. 1 point shy. 23-24, I mean, I went to 5, including box seats game. I mean, that was that big Pittsburgh trip, obviously. Of course, I got to see them play the Coyotes in their last year of existence before they moved to Utah. The team moved from Arizona to Utah. Came to Utah, Mammoth. Of course, got to see him play President's Day against the Ducks. Got to see him play the Golden Knights. Took my buddy Max there in that one. His first NHL game. And they won 7-2. New Jersey Devils they beat. In the 24-25, we bring back Lindy Ruff, finally. First year, we had a 13 losing streak, but still, we gave him a chance this past season. I went to like 9 total that year, including I got to see him beat Eichel again. But this past season, but before we get into that, let's talk about recap all the ones. I mean, went to the Canucks. I traveled through a snowstorm to get to that game. I wanted to see them play the Canucks because it's Vancouver Canucks, my second favorite, but still, I've always wanted to see those two teams play in person. I got that. They lost in overtime. I got to see a good game there. Same as the Red Wings. It was a shootout. They lost in a shootout. Capitals, that was a Christmas gift. I got to see beat the Capitals in the shootout in January of 2025. Nice much another one that later that month was Penguins. We got beaten that one. Predators was a special one because it was Rob Ray, one of the NHL's biggest goons, but like always one of our best fighters. Just likes to drop the gloves, man. Throw down, just stick it up for our teammates. He's probably one of the biggest goons in NHL history. Gets inducted to the Sabres Hall of Fame, and the Sabres won from that night, 4-3. Montreal lost 4-2 in that one. I got to see that one. That was a surprise. And then Vegas was the last minute one. I wanted to see that game, so I was because Eichel, and it was a win. 2-0 comeback. We were down 2-0. We came back and won to shoot out 4-3. And Boston Bruins, I saw him Tate Shots get a hat trick, and then of course it leaves 4-0. But now let's talk about this season in general. The whole season. I mean, it started out rough. First 3 games of the year, the Sabres. They lost 4-0 to the Rangers. At home ice. And everyone started saying, like, oh, it's gonna be another long year. The drought's gonna continue. And they lose the Bruins 3-1. And they lose the Avalanche. I was at that game. I was one of the 16 I went to this past season. They got their first win by putting up 8 goals on the Ottawa Senators. And they dominated. Of course, they shut out the Panthers. I was like, all right, we're starting to get it going more. Montreal lost 4-2. It's like, okay, it's all right. But then we beat Detroit. The Red Wings are a good team, but the Red Wings their drought might continue. And then my second game I attended this past season was the Toronto Maple Leafs. And it was a win. This is when I started noticing the downfall of the Toronto Maple Leafs, even though they had injuries along the way, including Austin Matthews' season-ending injury and all that. Yeah, I mean, Austin Matthews. But it was a 5-3 win. It was a back-and-forth game. That was really point streak kind of started with the Red Wings and the Leafs. And we lost in overtime to the Leafs. Lose overtime to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Point streak continued. Lost in overtime to Boston. Then we wanted to shoot over the Capitals. Then we lost to Utah Mammoth in overtime. Then we get shut by the Blues. Like, oh god, this is not gonna go well. Then we lose the Hurricanes on the road. Lose it at Utah, and then lose the Avalanche 6-3. And then a 3-goal comeback at the Red Wings. And of course, winning 5-4 in overtime. And they beat Edmonton, and of course the Calgary Flames game I was at. That was what I did Instagram right after, and we lost, 6-2. I was like, I don't know where this team. I think it's the same old Sabres. I was kind of giving up on them. But then the game after that, they put up 9 goals against the Blackhawks. I was like, all right. And they beat the Hurricanes, like good. And then I felt good about going that Penguins one. And they lost. I was watching that with my dad's fiance because my dad's fiance is a big Penguins fan. We watched that together, obviously. Devils, we got shut out 5-0. Then we beat the Minnesota Wild at the end of November. In the shootout, and then Winnipeg we won. It's like back to back. Like all right, kind of still in it. But then Flyers, they lost that one in December. And the Winnipeg Jets they lost, and they lost the Flames again. But December 9th, here it is. This is the turnaround of the Sabres. This is what turned their season around. Start with that overtime win. And then it was a battle of the two worst at the time. Like both teams were like battle of two worst teams in the NHL. We thought 31st seconds, and of course the Sabres beat the Canucks. They kept going. Then they finally get a winning streak. They beat the Kraken. That was the last game of the Kevin Adams era. Thank God, we fired him after that game. The first game under the new GM Yarmo, we went 5-3. That were that 4-game winning streak. Then a 5-game winning streak. And they beating the Islanders. And I came back from Cleveland, watched them beat the Devils 6, and then he won 7 in a row, beating the Ottawa Senators in overtime. Then they beat the Bruins to win their 8th in a row, 9th in a row of the Blues. And then they on New Year's Eve got the 10th win in a row. They had 10-game winning streak. But then they lost to Columbus. It's like, all right, it's like we were due for a loss anyway. Then they beat the Canucks again. Beat this New York Rangers team back early in January. Then they beat the Ducks, going another little bit of a winning streak. Lost the Panthers. I was at that game. The Flyers, they won that. Of course, the Montreal game I was at, it was the reunion night of the 05-06 team. That was a special game. And Tage Thompson got a hat trick in that one, so that was a really good game. Then they lose the Minnesota Wild in overtime. They lose the Hurricanes on MLK Day. And that was the close we came to winning in Carolina. Then we beat the Predators the following night, Then beat Montreal again in January in regulation. Then they shut the Islanders. And then beat the Maple Leafs. Then beat the Kings in the streak ended against the Montreal Canadiens. Then 3 more games before the Olympic break. They beat the Panthers, which is huge. And then they lose in overtime. They gain a point, and then they lose the time. I was like, we were panic at that point. The New Jersey, of course, during the Olympic break, we had a couple of guys playing the Olympics. Lukin for our starting goaltender didn't play because he got injured, so he couldn't participate in the Olympics. Rasmus Dahlin represent Team Sweden. Of course, obviously, Tage Thompson represent USA. Winning a gold medal. A lot of special moment in the Olympic break. And then we come back to the Olympic break. We come out strong against the Devils, winning that one 2-1. And then beat the Panthers again. Then winning in Tampa Bay. Then we win in Vegas. They beat the Gold Knights the first time. Then finally, the last game I attended, this past season, the more recent one was March 5th. I was with my buddy next year watching that. I went to his hometown in Pittsburgh. Went to his home. It was pretty much his city. I got to see the Sabres win. We were Sabres fans. We were happy about that win. That was like, we're getting close to clinching it. We're definitely going to clinch it at some point. Then beat Nashville. Then they winning the game of the year over the Lightning. A lot of fights, and then winning a high-scoring game, 8-7, that one. Then beat the Sharks. Then we lose the Capitals, but then redeemed ourselves by beating the Maple Leafs. Then they swept the season series over Jack Eichel and the Golden Knights. Shutting out, that was the West Coast trip. Shutting out the Sharks. Back-to-back shutout wins for the Sabres. And then they beat the Kings, then lost in overtime, getting 7 out of 8 points on the West Coast. And then we started slumping a bit. Losing the Bruins, we got a point though still. Then getting beat by the Red Wings. But then we beat the Kraken in a shutout. Then we beat the Islanders. I thought we could clinch it over the Ottawa Senators. Lost that one. But obviously, the Rangers beating the Red Wings to get us in the playoffs. Losing the Capitals. Of course, we beat Tampa Bay. Of course, tonight we got the Rangers. Tonight, obviously, we're playing currently. We're down a goal. But then we get Columbus tomorrow night at home. And then Chicago on the road Monday night. And then obviously finish out the regular season next Wednesday against the Dallas Stars. So, yeah, it'll be exciting to talk about playoff previews and all that, the Sabres. But, yeah, next week will be a 9:30 show, start time show. We're a little bit later because I'm going to watch the Sabres game. It'll be their regular season finale before, the Stanley Cup playoffs begin. So, of course, the New York, before we finish it off, let's talk about the New York Yankees, how good they've been playing. They've won their first 3 series by knocking off, the Giants. They swept the Giants, and they did well in Seattle, winning 2 out of 3. Then winning 2 out of 3 over the Miami Marlins in the first series. And then they're most likely going to win the series over the A's. If they do. And then, of course, obviously got Tampa Bay this weekend. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I can't wait till they play the Red Sox eventually. So, yeah, we will see you all next week. Next week we'll be previewing WrestleMania, but also previewing the NBA playoffs. Also tell more of the Stanley Cup playoffs eventually the weeks at end. So yeah, we will see you all next week. I am excited that the Sabres in the playoffs. We will see you all next week.